For 7 nights straight, one man chooses to sleep inside a metal cage that almost completely kills his Wi-Fi, cell reception, and everyday EMF exposure. While the rest of the city falls asleep with phones glowing against their faces, he zips himself into a copper-lined prison on purpose. The mission is brutal and simple. See what happens to sleep, to dreams, to the nervous system, when the invisible noise of modern life is cut down as far as he can push it. By the end, his sleep data will decide if this was pure paranoia or a calculated piece of dark biohacking. Most people sleep in an electromagnetic fog. Wi-Fi routers under the bed, phones charging beside the pillow, smartwatches pulsing on their wrists, Bluetooth leaking through walls. It makes no sound, has no color, and is easy to pretend it isn't there. But the brain speaks in electricity, in delicate spikes of voltage measured in millivolts. This experiment treats that background EMF as constant noise. No panic, no fear, just a cold question. If that noise is reduced at night, even in one person, do the recovery metrics shift enough to notice? Behind the cage, there is a disputed piece of biology. Some researchers propose that electromagnetic fields can influence voltage-gated calcium channels in cell membranes. When these channels open more often, more calcium flows in, which may increase oxidative stress and disturb signaling. In theory, that could nudge systems that regulate sleep, including melatonin production and circadian timing. The data are mixed, context-dependent, and far from a medical consensus. This is not a cure, not a replacement for treatment. It is a controlled self-experiment, asking whether dialing down EMF at night might support sleep quality in one highly monitored human. Before he locks himself in, he builds a baseline. 2 weeks of normal nights with a sleep tracking ring and strap. Bedtime, wake time, sleep latency, deep sleep, REM, heart rate variability. The graphs are familiar and slightly disappointing. He takes longer than he'd like to fall asleep, wakes up more than once, spends less time in deep sleep than guidelines suggests, and his nighttime heart rate cruises a little high. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would send him to a clinic. Just the signature of a modern nervous system marinated in screens and notifications. These numbers become the control version of him, the version that sleeps inside the fog. Then, the bedroom turns into a lab. A lightweight frame goes up around the bed. Conductive fabric woven with copper and silver is stretched over it, turning the bed into a crude Faraday tent. A grounding cable runs from the structure to an electrical ground point, bleeding off static. An EMF meter starts ticking through numbers. Outside the cage, readings jump as Wi-Fi and cell signals hit the sensor. Inside, values drop. To most people, it would look like a strange camping setup. To him, it is a protocol. Same mattress, same pillow, completely different electromagnetic landscape. Night 1, he crawls into the cage, pulls the zipper down, and listens as the outside world becomes slightly muffled. The air feels thicker, the sound more contained, like sitting in the cabin of a plane that never takes off. His phone, usually the last object he sees before sleep, is now trapped outside the mesh. A thin layer of claustrophobia appears. The mind loops around the same thought. What if something important happens while I'm sealed in here? Falling asleep becomes less about EMF and more about how addicted he is to being available. Inside the cage, his signal bars collapse. Messages stop loading, social feeds freeze, videos refuse to buffer. Without planning it, he has entered a digital dopamine detox. For years, his brain has been trained to expect small hits of novelty every few seconds. A scroll, a notification, a new clip. Now there is nothing. His hand still reaches for the phone out of habit, only to meet cold fabric and metal mesh. The experiment stops being just about physics. It becomes behavioral. A nervous system conditioned by constant input is forced to sit in silence with itself. Nights 2 and 3. The shock wears off, leaving repetition. Same room, same cage, same ritual. Without screens, time stretches. Boredom becomes part of the protocol. Internal sounds grow louder. The slow thump of his heartbeat in the pillow, the rhythm of his breath, the quiet churning of digestion. With the external world turned down, the internal world steps forward. Some people would call this peace, others would call it anxiety. For him, it is a live recording of what his nervous system does when the constant feed finally goes dark. Over all of this, a deeper question hangs. The pineal gland, a small structure near the center of the brain, helps regulate melatonin. The hormone signals biological night. Light at the wrong time, especially blue light, is well known to blunt melatonin and delay sleep. With electromagnetic fields, the picture is less clear. Some animal and in vitro studies suggest that intense EMF exposure can alter melatonin. Other research finds little or no effect. What is more agreed on is that deep, restorative sleep prefers environments that are dark, quiet, and predictable. For 1 week, this cage adds another layer, a bedroom that is also, at least partially, electromagnetically quiet. Night 4 is the first real shift. By now, the shutdown ritual is carved into him. Devices off, one dim lamp, a few pages of a physical book, notes in a journal, then into the cage at the same time every night. This time, sleep comes faster. There is less tossing, less mental replay of tomorrow. In the morning, he notices something new. Dreams that feel structured, with sharper images and more coherent storylines instead of scattered fragments. On the app, REM sleep rises and deep sleep nudges higher. In one person, that could be placebo or random variation. But when a nervous system receives the same signal at the same hour, in the same environment, it usually starts to adapt. As the week unfolds, nights inside the cage start to look less like punishment and more like a ritual. Without screens, he falls back on analog tools. Slow reading, handwritten pages, controlled breathing drills, short periods of eyes-open stillness. Sleep scientists would call this textbook sleep hygiene, but here it is enforced by metal mesh. The cage becomes a symbol. Zipping it closed is a physical message to his brain. The outside world is not invited in. No new emails, no new crises to solve, only the slow, automatic processes of repair. The environment is telling his system over and over, this is what night feels like. Nights 5 and 6 make the pattern harder to dismiss. Average nighttime heart rate drops several beats below baseline. Heart rate variability climbs, often interpreted, with caution, as a sign of better recovery and stronger parasympathetic influence. Subjectively, he reports less internal noise before sleep, fewer arguments in his own head, and a heavier, more grounded body. There is still a cost. Flashes of irritation, fear of missing out, the sense of being unplugged while everyone else keeps scrolling. But the graphs do not care about his emotions. They simply show that for this individual, less digital input and a shielded sleeping space coincide with stronger recovery signals. Night 7 is loaded before it even starts. He knows this is the final entry, the night that will end up as thumbnails, graphs, and conclusions. That awareness alone can sabotage sleep. Trying to sleep perfectly is usually the fastest way to break it. Still, he follows the script with surgical discipline. Same shutdown time, same warm lamp, same breathing pattern, same short reading, same slow zip of the cage. Outside, towers and routers keep flooding the air with signals. Inside, for a few more hours, there is just a human body, a metal shield, and a nervous system that has learned, finally, how to power down without a screen. Morning. The cage is open, the mesh is folded, and all that is left is data. Side by side, the graphs tell a restrained story. Compared to baseline, sleep latency is shorter. Time awake after sleep onset is lower. Deep sleep minutes have climbed. REM sleep is more stable from night to night. Nighttime heart rate has dropped. Heart rate variability has improved. This is just one person, 1 week, many variables changing at once. Less light, fewer screens, stricter rituals, quieter EMF. No single factor can claim the win, but together they point toward a simple idea. When different layers of noise are removed, the nervous system tends to answer with deeper recovery. Most people will never sleep in a Faraday cage, and they do not need to. The real lesson of this experiment is not the metal, it is the signal. It shows what happens when a human nervous system is finally given permission to disconnect. The core protocol is free. Turn the Wi-Fi router off at night, put the phone in airplane mode and move it away from the bed. Build a wind-down ritual. Dim lights, physical pages, slow breathing, predictable timing. Studies suggest the body sleeps better when the message is clear. Now is work, now is rest. The challenge is simple. Run your own weekend of partial digital silence, track your sleep, and decide how much noise you actually want in the place where your brain repairs itself. Like, comment, share this with one person, and I'll see you in the next BioSync protocol.